don't forget the money, man.
What's up? What's good? Matt Clark here at the new Matt Clark. How are each and every one of you doing on this amazing Monday and Family Day? Uh, I just hope everybody's doing great because my family's doing great. And, with the way that everything's kind of been going, been kind of down. Hopefully, by watching my videos, we can uplift people a little bit and, move away from the negativity. If you could please hit that like button, that subscribe button, and that bell notification button so you get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word. That would be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description of all of my videos. So today we have Emily of Comeback Snacks. I felt like it's important to bring female perspective. I think sometimes it can be forgotten, and a large part of my viewership on my channel is male, but there are female subscribers, and I think it's important to get into that. So if you could just kind of introduce yourself and just kind of give a breakdown of who you are and where you came from.
Sure. My name's Emily O'Brien. I'm actually from Hamilton, Ontario, and I went to university, had a pretty average life growing up. I got good grades, everything like that, but I did like my substances. I did, start with alcohol and then get into cocaine as I kind of moved to Toronto after school. Often that comes like substances aren't always just about the party lifestyle. We often use substances to kind of get away with things and try to deal with things when really they don't help us deal with them at all. And I started really getting into cocaine when I kind of had a little bit of like limbo in my life. I wasn't really sure what direction I went into. And then I also, met someone who I thought wanted to tell me to get sober, and I thought he had my best intentions at mind, and he really didn't. There's tons of great guys out in the world out there. Like, I'm not guy shaming at all. Like, there's so many great guys out there. So, unfortunately, this one just had different intentions for me, and I went on a trip with him, and he told me that I was going to be smuggling back narcotics from St. Lucia. And you know what? I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not good at lying. And so trying to get over that border with 2 kilograms coke strapped to my body was just not going to bode well for me. And it didn't. And I got arrested. And after being on house arrest for about 2.5 years while I waited for the court proceedings to follow through, I pled guilty because I knew that was my first step in healing. And so, I had, you want to tell a 26-year-old to live at home with your mom again. It's going to be kind of challenging, but I had to do it. So a lot of difficulty there. And finally, when I got to prison, I thought it was like, it was my time to actually turn things around. And that's kind of what I did.
So how much time did you get exactly?
4 years.
So you did a good stretch. Now, did you get parole or did you do your 2/3 to stat?
I got parole. Yeah. Like I'm on parole still. I still have about 10 months left actually. So January 16th, 2022, I'm going to be done. And I see my parole officer once every 2 months now. So it's good. And in prison, I found a new way to kind of reinvent myself and help reinvent others. And that was through entrepreneurship inside, because I really saw how many people struggled with the anxiety of finding employment after incarceration and just changing the stigma and perception about people's character. Because so often we assume character has to do with action, and that's not true at all. Like, a lot of crime is committed because we're in like emotional distress. It's not because we want to villainize the neighborhood or like, right? We don't want to terrorize. Like, I don't know. I never grew up with the idea that I wanted to terrorize people with drugs. Huh?
For sure. Or just necessity. Sometimes people need to do what they got to do to survive. And it's not that they're evil people, they're hateful people. They just, they got to do what they got to do. And sometimes that lands you in prison. If you see every year, it's just kind of, the world just kind of keeps getting a little crazier and a little crazier. and things get a
Yeah.
little more and more scarce, it can seem pretty like there's nothing there for some people. I know that because, I've been in the situation. I did 17 years total myself, and I just
Yeah.
know what it can feel like to feel hopeless at times. Like there's nothing there
Yeah.
for you, and you can lash out. Doesn't mean you're a terrible person. So 4 years, that's a good sentence. That's a good chunk of time. What was Grand Valley Institution like? And the male politics is all machismo. It's all based off pride. I don't really know about the female politics. So if you could kind of break down what the day to day is like in there for us.
For sure. Like any prison environment, there's the prison economy, right? You can buy and sell goods, and you can buy protection. You can stuff. I girls' homework for stamps. There's also like drugs in there, but I just kind of was like, no, I want to be sober in here. I didn't really want to be like on anything in there because I really wanted to get out. A lot of women in prison are also mothers. I think about 80%. So the desire to really get out of prison is definitely there. And there's also a large number of women in prison for the same crime as me, and that's importing drugs. And most of these women are also first-time offenders. So again, we have like no record, and we're just quickly kind of moving up from medium to minimum just to get out. So I mean, again, where I stayed. It was a multi-level security prison, Grand Valley Institution for Women. So I did live with people who had been convicted of murder and who now lived in minimum, because if you had been convicted of that and you had to live in max for 2 years and then in medium, and then eventually you could get kind of tiered down based on your behavior. So I met so many interesting people and so many just kind people in there who just had been just so down and out and ended up in there, and they really needed like a leg up. And I have always been raised to have empathy and to try to understand why people do the things that they do and to not have judgment. And by like kind of embracing this way of life, I was able to make a lot of friends and see that anyone can make these decisions and end up incarcerated. It's just some people have the resources to hide these decisions and some people don't. You see so many horrible financial crimes committed or whatever committed by top level politicians or business owners, and they can hide it because they have the money. But when you're lower down, sometimes you just can't, and you're easily picked up and in you go, and then it's like a vicious circle. Yeah, I don't really call it the criminal justice system. I call it the criminal reinforcement system, because there is such limited opportunity for growth and getting out on the right foot.
Yeah, I tell people on my channel all the time, it's the hamster wheel, and they're not trying to rehabilitate you. They want you to come back. You pay their bills, you pay their paychecks. And sure, they have to have so many people rehabilitate because they can't look like a total failure. But the reality is that's not what they want. Those are just the token inmates that get chosen to do that. And you got to work your butt off if you want to get out of there early. You know that because you got parole. They don't just hand it to you. But you're right. The programming is so basic. It's not individualized at all. There's no real therapy or counseling. They look down at you for everything. It's all condescending. So now, like I said, the male side is very machismo. There's a lot of fights and stuff. Now, do you still get that there? Like, if females fight as much?
Yeah, well, of course, I think like if you break like any of the kind of rules, like you don't mess with people's relationships, you don't acquire debts, and you don't snitch, you don't be a busybody. And I think as long as you do those three things, like you'll be fine. And you don't just talk shit. Like I went in there, I was nothing when I was in there, but I still held my head high. But I wasn't conceited about that I was better than anyone, because everyone is on the same level when they get in there, 100%. And the best way to kind of build your circle is by listening to others, and it's not by doing this instead of this, right? So
for sure. Because I say it, you're gonna make your bid. You're gonna survive way longer being smart, not tough.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: what made you decide that you wanted to change? Was there one specific instance? Like, I know you said you weren't really involved in the criminal lifestyle, but what made you decide to really um, go to the lane that you're in now?
I was just so sick of living in a toxic mindset of being mad and being angry. And that wasn't who I was. Like, I'm a pretty happy person, and I wasn't going to let my decisions, create that version of me. And I wasn't going to let the system make that version of me permanent. Sure, we all have to live in some states for long enough that we decide we can't live there anymore. So I had to be mad for long enough, and I had to keep drinking and doing drugs until I realized that wasn't getting me anywhere. And I knew that I had like a lot of potential. And this definitely starts with having, a positive circle around you, people that believe in you. And just access to things that I was lucky enough that my mom lived really close to the halfway house. So I had a lot of things in my favor that I definitely realize, and which is why I also speak out about those things too, because we are not all dealt the same set of cards. And
No,
so we have no control over that, right? But we are controlled with how we play the game. So that's kind of what I dealt with. It was all about strategy from that point. It wasn't about whining about your cards, or you take your cards and you figure out how to win and how to help others win as well.
Oh, for sure. You definitely can't whine about the cards you're dealt. You can't change what's been done, right? So
yeah.
What have you found the parole has been like for you? What has your experience been with that?
Parole started off pretty challenging. I mean, just like the things that I would get in trouble for. I remember I got in trouble because I didn't call from a landline once. And I called every single time I left my destination, and they were like, "You didn't call from a landline. This is an incident." I got an incident report for not calling from a landline. Like, you want me to run into like the library and be like, "Hi, I'm on parole. Can I use your phone?" Like, just some of the rules are so outdated, and they don't match with like people's actual needs to living a productive life. So yeah, there's that. And then there's just so much control over your romantic relationships, which I think they have no business in. I think that's something that should stay like intimate, unless you've committed like some really messed up thing. But like most people in prison haven't done that. So it's like, why do you have to monitor every single person that I'm sleeping with, or not even sleeping with? Like, I remember there were calls that were made to my friends that were like, "Oh, are you sleeping with Emily?" Like, all this. And my heart, nothing. Like, I wanted to trip with my boyfriend. Like, why are you call? And it was just like humiliating and a control over your body that I don't think the system should have control over.
Oh, for sure. And they tell males, they tell us that you have to report all relationships.
Yeah.
And not only report relationships, but the person you're in the relationship with, you have to have told them your whole record, your whole criminal history, every single thing you've done. Because if you haven't, they're going to. And like at the end of the day, you're right. It's really intrusive, and it really crosses the line and can really get uncomfortable. And just like the urinalysis, like to me, you could get cameras. There's ways around having some person stand right over top of your shoulder. I remember I was in Newmarket police station. I had to do urinalysis, and they put me in a tiny little bathroom. I'm telling you, it was like 3 by 3 foot with this guy whose back is touching my back the whole time. He's like breathing over top of me. And they're telling me they're going to send me back if I can't go in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? So you're right. The parole is crazy at times with the intrusiveness, but it does help create routine at first. So, I see that on your Instagram, you have this comeback snacks, and it seems to be doing fairly well. So why don't you kind of explain that to everybody and how you went down that road, and like what exactly made you focus on comeback snacks?
Sure. So I've always been a really creative person, and I've always been someone that's thrived off doing good things. Sometimes unfortunately, when I've been in negative spaces, you thrive off doing negative things, but that doesn't really get you anywhere, and you always have to look over your shoulder. And again, it all relates to not wanting to live in that space anymore. And I knew I could create something good out of the social situation. It was my way of getting like proactive revenge on myself for treating myself so poorly and the person that did this to me. I wanted to build something that no one could take from me. And this was by creating something that meant something to myself and others. And one thing that everyone has a stigma against is like whether people from prison should be employed, or what kind of jobs they should have, or if they can be trusted. And I think all those myths they're just myths. Basically, like, I've met so many talented and smart people with drive, with hustle, people that have goals and dreams and aspirations. So that's when I kind of took a popular prison snack, which was popcorn, and turned it into like a social enterprise. because I wanted to break that stigma. And there's so many people that talk the talk, but you can't break stigma until you walk the walk. And so that's why I started it when I was in there with popcorn kernels and stamps. I started writing letters. I was like, you know what? I believe in myself and I believe in the people in here with me that we are more than this and we're going to prove it, so that the people trying to talk down on us can zip it. Because I have a great staff now, and they're all people that have been incarcerated or had terrible addictions. And it's just great because you're proving people wrong. And that's a great asset to have as a company, I think. And it's also a great way to create change from higher levels, right? Like, why are there policies that say you have to get a criminal record check? You know, should banks be able to deny you funding if you have a record? Just so many things where one decision can impact you for the rest of your life and really keep you lagging behind. So that's kind of what we do, is we focus on storytelling and proving people wrong and creating jobs and second chances and second lives for others.
Yeah, and stigma is a real thing, and something that I say on my channel is because I got lucky. You know, I was in an AA meeting. Somebody heard my story, liked my story, gave me a job offer. I started working and I showed my value. But what I said is, you have to take advantage of the opportunities you get, and
Yeah.
you know, you have to get up every day and you have to really, really work harder than everybody else. There's no you can work as hard as the next guy, because there's going to be people that literally want to ruin you for no reason. Like, I had a guy at my company that knew about my past, and the
Yeah.
minute I started there, every day would try to get me fired. I smell pot in the machine, total bullshit. I smell this, he's doing this, running to the, just because I had a record. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that you're doing that and you're giving people opportunities. At the end of the day, some of the smartest people I've met in my life, I met in prison. Some of the most loyal people I met in my life, I met in prison. And honestly, if I was to say I met a handful of regular civilians and a handful of convicts, I'd say that the convicts would be more creative, they'd be more innovative, they'd have better ideas, and they wouldn't be so boring.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to want to just kind of live your life and just float. But I think that a lot of people in prison, the reason why we're in prison is because we don't go with society norms. That doesn't really work with us, and we rebel against it. So you said you employ a lot of people, and you see that they're the hardest working people, and you really enjoy working with them. What do you have planned from here? Like, what's the next step for you,
Yeah.
and how big do you see this thing getting?
Well, we're in talks with national retailers right now to carry the brand. So that means more national belief. And I'm working with organizations in the United States as well. Eventually, I want to have like a Dragon's Den kind of show, but only people that have like been to prison, you know, because I went on Dragon's Den and they didn't even episode. So it's like, okay, clearly there's some censorship going on here. I want to change that. I want to give people from prison a chance, because when you come out of prison, chances are you're not going to be able to get grants and get funding. And that was another thing that I noticed. So I want to take that experience and, you know, create really awesome and help build people's businesses, because the talent is just exceptional. So that's kind of one of my goals. Just going from there. I have a book coming out, and yeah, it's called From Convict to Comeback: How I Turned My Failures into Freedom. So that's coming down the pipeline, which I want to eventually get into prisons. And then I want to design a prison entrepreneurship course, just like, you know, a bootstrap kind of not a basic, but not basic course to getting, you know, your business from A to B. And the hardest thing is getting it from inside prison to out. So, but I want to teach people how to do it, because I truly believe that when you have something that you want to fight for, you know, we're fighters. So if we're going to fight for something, we'll win.
100%. And I feel like the best way to help people is to uplift them and to make them believe in themselves. You know, I feel like when you're using drugs and you're deep in the pit of addiction and you're actively involved in criminal activity, you're very lonely, you know, and there's not a whole lot going on. You can be surrounded by people, but super lonely. And I feel like the best way to help somebody is to give them something to want to fight for, you know, and you know, like, I commend you for that. So let me ask you this. What would you say is the best piece of advice that you heard from somebody in prison?
I would probably say it was from one of the people that were in there for life, and she said, you just honestly have to be patient, and you just have to get used to some days being really horrible and some days being about nothing. Because sometimes when your days are about nothing, that's when your biggest ideas can come.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too long, but I have one last question for you.
Sure.
If you could give my viewers, one piece of advice that one thing that you could give them that you think would motivate them, what would that be? What would you say to them if you had them all in front of you and you could just give them one piece of advice? What would that be?
Fight for your story and fight for yourself, because if you fight for your story and you own that story, that is the biggest asset. Because when you own your story, no one can take it from you. The second you hide your story, that's when people want to take it and run with it, and you become owned. So don't let people own your story. You got to own it.
Yeah, I agree. So if you want to shout somebody out, if you have anything you want to shout out, and like I said, if you want to comment a link to your business or anything like that in the comment section under the video, that would be super cool. I could pin it.
Sure.
And like I said, everybody, Comeback Snacks, check it out on Instagram. I love the idea. I just love the mentorship idea. I think that we need more people who can go out and help and actually tell people that are going through this stuff that it's not hopeless. I did 17 years, and at one point I thought it's impossible. It is impossible for me to turn it around. And I'm here, and it didn't even take all that long. It just took some hard work and some belief in myself. And, I think you got the right idea too. I just think that it takes hard work. Nobody's going to give it to you, right?
Exactly. Comebacks are earned, they're not given, right? So just use that hustle to make a comeback. Yeah.
And if you come back from this, you're one in a million. You really are. Like, it's not that many that are able to go through that much trauma, to go through that much stuff and turn it around and really stand out and have legacy. If you can do that, you're one in a million, Obviously, we share our stories with you guys, so you guys don't have to go through these things yourselves. If I could snap my finger, nobody's addicted to drugs. Nobody goes to prison. Nobody experiences abuse or trauma again. That is what I do, but that's not reality, especially in 2021. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, and sometimes that can land you in prison. And hopefully, by making these videos, doing these interviews, our experience can guide you in the right direction. So maybe before you make that wrong decision, you say, you know what, it's not worth it. If you could please hit that like button, if you could please hit that subscribe button and that bell notification button so you get all my videos when they're new. If you could share with somebody on social media, help spread the message, help spread the word, that would be amazing. And there's a PayPal option if you'd like to donate, help support the channel. The link is in the description of all of my videos. So, Emily, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much.
I honestly will probably keep in touch with what's going on your Instagram page. I'd really be curious to see, how it grows and how it develops. And like I said, I commend you. It takes a lot to actually step out and tell people your story when it's this kind of a story, because automatically there's judgment, that. And sometimes it could be hard to break through those barriers, and it could be really tiring dealing with that kind of stuff. So, like I said, if you have any last words, if you'd like to.
I guess, don't let having a record break you. I would, break records with it. That's what you do. You got to flip the switch. It's always about flipping the switch. 100%.
100% agree.